From LALATE News headquarters in Santa Monica, this is Mornings LALATE.
It's a big morning of Mornings LALATE. After the prior recording got disconnected due to a lost connectivity, forced stimulus is heating up, and that forced stimulus checks could land in the month of July. This week we got the incredible great news as a series of events pushed it closer to the finish line. That's that forced stimulus check, the biggest single payout you've ever seen in the history of this channel. Meantime, great news from IRS, as third stimulus checks are landing this weekend. I have all the details of that and more. And then those big changes to SSI. SSI reform is coming under fifth stimulus. I'll have all the details and how that will change this fall, starting around October. Meantime, big news about student loan debt forgiveness. The business grant that was supposed to go live today, and did it or did it not? What happened? And what's happening with student loan debt forgiveness? That change for the capital gains tax that people were anticipating. And all the other big financial news, including a series of major corporate earnings next week that could signal whether stimulus checks are coming faster than ever anticipated. This is Mornings LALATE. Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Mornings LALATE. Hope you're having a beautiful Saturday morning. This is a continuation of the broadcast before this that was disconnected due to connectivity problems. Hope you're having a great day. If you've not subscribed, make sure you subscribe. Also, like this video. And if you've not become a member, consider becoming a member. Purple Hawk, Purple Power, or Calcino VIP. Let's get to the breaking details starting this Saturday morning. Third stimulus checks that you may not have seen are coming by direct deposit this weekend. IRS confirmed that a sixth wave of stimulus checks have gone out. But then the fourth stimulus. Fourth stimulus is heating up. This is the single biggest payout you've ever seen on this channel, and it's that stimulus check that starts in July. Multiple stimulus checks. In this recording, I'm going to go over the amount of the check, how soon, who gets it, the eligibility, how you would physically get it, and why there was incredible great news this week about receiving these four stimulus checks. With that, let's get to the details right off the bat. Four stimulus checks are part of what's called the four stimulus package, the infrastructure bill, the Recovery Act, or the American Jobs Plan. Those stimulus checks need to go out sooner rather than later, that the economy is rebounding. But did the economy rebound at a rate faster this week? I'll be going over that later in this recording, but let's look at the checks themselves. The checks would be coming monthly. House members want to give you a stimulus check for 6 months, plus the amount of the pandemic, which could be 6 months plus an additional year thereafter. About 18 months of checks. The senators want to give you stimulus checks from now to December. The House members are progressives. They're junior members of Congress, whereas the senators are elder statesmen. They are the movers and shakers of the Senate. And then there's a difference on the amount of the monthly check. The House members want to give you a check of about $1,000 a month. The senators, the amount of the check is unknown, but word on the street is it would be something like this: $2,000 a month for 6 months, which would amount to $12,000, or $1,400 a month, which would amount to $8,400. This would be the single biggest payout you've ever seen in this channel's history. But let's go over some of the questions that I always get, which are when, who, and how. All right, first go over the when. The stimulus checks would go out in the month of July. When would the vote be? In July. When would the first check be paid? For the month of July. The vote would come around July 4th to Speakers Pelosi and Leader Schumer. Second, who would get the stimulus check? If you're on SSI or SSDI, this would be you. If you make less than $75,000, this would be you. The income qualification would be the same as the third stimulus check. $150,000 or less, married couple, this would be you. Double the number of the amount of the check. The amount shown on the screen before is the amount for the check for one person. And then the household size would be 4 or less. Times it by 4 for the amount of the check. And there you go. And finally, the how. How would you get the stimulus check? While we don't have any definitive answers about that, I believe it will fall by how Warren Harris, and Sanders wanted to do it in 2020, with a debit card landing the first month and then replenished thereafter. Now, why did forced stimulus get incredible push this week? It came in three forms. First, the Federal Reserve. Second, the Republicans. And third, the economy. Let's start with the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is supposed to report its latest update next week, but insider says the Federal Reserve says that the economy needs more stimulus. Great news for that. Number two, the economic data that came this week showed that our growth and recovery is no faster than the month before. We had been worried going into Thursday that our economic growth was rebounding faster than anticipated. That would mean that we'd be fully rebounded this summer, not this fall. Not going to be the case at the moment. Where are we currently? 8 million jobs missing and 60 million people unemployed. Will that be restored by July or December? The great news this week is still December. We had seen 2 weeks before that the number of new jobless claims dropped 250,000 in 1 week. And we were worried that this week we were going to drop another 250,000. But we didn't. We stayed flat. And as a result, that means that stimulus is still on path to get out the door in July. And finally, what happened with the Republicans? Well, the Republicans had the opportunity to do bipartisan support, but didn't. And with that, that means that we're going to recon. The Republicans had early on during the process 3 weeks ago said that they don't want climate, they don't want $2 trillion, and they're going to give 600 to 800 billion. This week, they said the same and reduced the bottom line to in the 500 billion. So with that, that means we're going to recon, we're getting forced stimulus out the door. But we weren't done there. We also had big news this week about fifth stimulus. Fifth stimulus is SSI reform. And for the first time in the history of this channel, SSI reform is happening. We saw that incredible letter that came out this week from 20 plus Democrats in the House and Senate that said SSI reform has to happen in fifth stimulus this fall. What is fifth stimulus and what does this mean? Let me explain. The bill you're currently talking about now with me, American Job Plan, is fourth stimulus, July. But in fall, in September, the president will take up the America Family Plan. That's the fifth stimulus. Well, those Democrats will come forward and say, in the fall, you have to do SSI reform in fifth stimulus. And away we go. First, I'm going to go over what is the SSI reform going to involve, and then I'm going to go over the details. It's very easy to follow, but first let me go over broadly what it is. It involves the following: increasing your benefit limits, increasing the asset limits, remove and then adding an inflationary benchmark. Then it would remove the income exclusion and remove the marriage penalty. All right, let's go over the details and how this formulates. First, I'm going to go over the amounts, and then I'm going to go over the when, and then I'm going to go over the how. First, the amounts. All your benefits would be raised up to a new amount. That new amount would start in that new program. You would never see your current amount ever again. The new amount would then get an additional boost. What is that boost? A new benchmark every December. Remember, every December, your benefits are reassessed. Well, your benefits would be tied to inflation going forward, which is 1 to 4%. The great news about this is that inflation over the next 3 years is expected to be 2 to 3% per year. So you're guaranteed to have your benefits increase 2 to 3% from that new number. Remember, they're going to raise you to a new number and then increase you annually 2 to 3% if inflation goes their way over the next few years. Then they're going to remove the asset cap. Currently, there's a cap dating back to 1984 that says you can't keep more than $2,000 on hand for a certain type of benefits. They're going to get rid of that and do a whole new system. Additionally, they're going to remove the income cap, which is really one of the most exciting provisions we've seen in a while. If you do want to work, you don't have to work, but if you do want to work, you know you can't work more than a certain amount of money and stay on benefits. They're going to get rid of that and do a new number, because that number is dating back to 1962. The new number will be somewhere between $1,000 to $2,000 a month. You could work and still stay on benefits. Then they're going to tie that to inflation. And finally, they're going to get rid of the marriage penalty. To which you may say, when is this going to happen? And then the how. The when, this would happen in the fall. the how. It would go by recon. September is when it would start. It's a 2-month recon again. And so you'd likely to see the impact on your pocketbook, your impact on your benefits around the second to last month of this year. And that would be going forward permanently. Incredible great news. Also making big news today is the money for the business grants. That business grant was supposed to go live today. What happened? And what's going on with student loan debt forgiveness and more. I'll be going over that in a second. But here's what you also need to know is that this coming week, a series of corporate earnings will be coming in. And those corporate earnings could signal whether, again, we should watch to see if this economy is rebounding at a faster rate of growth or at the same rate of growth that we had seen before. The corporate earnings will start this week with Monday, with Tesla. Let me go over Monday. Jim Cramer says of Monday's Tesla's earnings reports, I'm betting the quarter will be a good one. I like Tesla at all these levels. He also says that Tesla is part of the electric vehicle play. And then on Tuesday, corporate earnings come in from Alphabet, Microsoft, and Starbucks. Of Alphabet, Jim Cramer says we got to focus on the Google Cloud. I think it steals the show. I like it very much. Of Microsoft, Cramer says, the funny thing is it's probably going to do it. He says the Microsoft stock has been on a run. It needs to report a monster quarter with those huge Azure numbers, but I think it's going to do it. I'm going to stay with it. And then of Starbucks, he says Starbucks has a monster run over the past year in anticipation of the reopening call, and it may be too early, but I'm looking for a pullback. Ooh, interesting. Now, remember, this is what you need to know, is that for stimulus, you want to see whether this economy is rebounding at a faster growth rate than anticipated or at the same rate. So later in this recording, I'll go over the rest of the week and what other corporate earnings you should be expecting across the board. But let's go to the other exciting news. And the other exciting news comes from what could happen elsewhere in the fourth stimulus package. The fourth stimulus package, of course, is infrastructure, roads, climate, and stimulus checks. But could other things be slid in there as well? I think so, yes. Here's what you need to know, is that while we're talking about fourth stimulus, we're also talking about time frame. Fourth stimulus is called for a vote in July. And then Congress goes on vacation to September. What happens between July and September? PEUC expires, PUA expires, FPUC expires, student loan debt forgiveness, mortgage forbearance, a lot of things expire. So could other items be slid into the fourth stimulus? I think they have to be. I don't think you will be surprised if they are. So which items do I think will slide into fourth stimulus? I think Ron Wyden's plan will. Ron Wyden has an incredible idea, and the idea is to save the expiring PUA with a new program. The new program would pay $250 a week over 6 months, as often as you need it, lifetime. It would be no longer tied to COVID. It works upon the premise that PUA recipients need money if they have an impact on their livelihood. And the concept is $250 a week for up to 6 months per year, $6,000. Do I think that the minimum wage will slide into fourth stimulus? I think Bernie Sanders will make a play to get it in there, but I don't think it's going to fit in there. Meantime, what about the wealth tax from Elizabeth Warren? Do I think that is going to get in there? Let me go over that detail first right now. Next week, we have incredible great news from Elizabeth Warren as she puts her wealth tax bill front and center. Remember, the wealth tax bill was what she debuted during her campaign for president that would pay the $2,400 of SSI and SSDI. Her idea was a wealth tax bill, not a tax on people with six figures, only a tax on trillionaires and billionaires. Well, the great news is next week she's putting a congressional hearing together about the wealth tax that could pay your SSI $200 a month. Do I think the wealth tax bill will get into fourth stimulus? I don't think so. I think it's a little too polarizing. But could $200 a month for SSI get into fourth stimulus? Maybe, maybe not. Remember, if you're on SSI, you're getting those monthly stimulus checks. So it could sound a little bit duplicative to get that plus the SSI. And remember, we're already approaching April. So $200 a month could play into that as well. Meantime, what's coming up in the second half of this recording? Student loan debt forgiveness. The business grant that was supposed to go live today, is it? What's going on with that capital gains tax and what does it mean for you? What about that mortgage forbearance? And then also, what should you anticipate for the rest of corporate earnings next week and how its bottom line could impact your push for fourth stimulus out the door? And what's happening with sixth stimulus and that capital gains confusion this week of capital gains tax? I'll have all those details and more coming up in about 60 seconds. Stay with me. I'll be right back. If you want money right now, not 5 days from now, and not 5 weeks from now, then reach out to the community page. The volunteers can help you find that money for rent and utilities. That's at news.la.com/community. The community page features a series of volunteers who are viewers like you. They can help you find rent, utilities, SNAP, food benefits, mortgage assistance, and help you with eviction moratorium questions as well. Their Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram individuals reach out to them and indicate the city and state you're from, and they'll get back to you shortly. That's a community page. Volunteers working for you, viewers helping one another. Stay with LA for more. Join LALATE Daily for the excitement of the new LALATE live daily. The excitement starts on Mornings LALATE at 9 a.m. Home LALATE returns at 11 a.m. daily. And then afternoons LALATE at 1 p.m. Join us daily as the excitement continues live from Santa Monica on LALATE. And the excitement continues later today with Noontime LALATE in about 2 hours from now. That's Noontime LALATE at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's followed by Afternoons LALATE for 2 hours after that. Our new programming schedule is easy and breezy to follow because there's a new show every 2 hours. That's the first Afternoons LALATE at 4 p.m. And then we go into the second Afternoons LALATE at 6 p.m., followed by Evenings LALATE at 8 p.m. and LA Late Night. 3 shows are currently archived on the channel from overnights as well. Thank you for joining me on Mornings LALATE. If you've not subscribed, please do. We're approaching our 1-year anniversary tomorrow, so I really appreciate you to be part of this family. Subscribe today. Also like this video. Let's try to do 2,000-3,000 likes. If you're in the live chat and you have not liked the video yet, please like the video. Also consider becoming a member. Purple Hawk, Purple Power, Calcino VIP. The link's at the top of the chat and also in the pinned comment. During the commercial break, I saw some of your great questions and comments. Let me answer them right now. What about FPUC Retro? Someone said. There is no push for it yet. Ultimately, as we get further out in time, the push for FPUC Retro seems less unlikely. But ultimately, you want to keep on pushing for it. No one's talking about it except us. From politicians' standpoint, they're not talking about it. But Ron Wyden said he would push for it if he got other Democratic senators behind it. Second, someone said, why can't they send out the 4 stimulus checks now? Because it's a reconciliation process. It takes 2 months. Third, someone said, why are we concerned about, someone said July seems very far out. Well, it takes a while to make a bill. It takes a while to do a recon. So ultimately, that's where we are. Thank you for those great questions and comments. Keep them coming. I'll be answering them throughout the day and perhaps more in this recording. Student loan debt forgiveness. What happened with that? Well, Miguel Cardona was supposed to prepare that memo to the President of the United States, and it was due a week ago yesterday, and has not come out. Remember, Miguel Cardona was instructed by the president to do a memo to say whether a president can forgive student loan debt by executive order. At issue is a $50,000 student loan debt forgiveness. Well, Cardona did not produce that memo last week or this week. And now broadcast media is watching this coverage of this channel and realizes it's a problem. So now they're questioning, where is the letter? You go on social media if this is a big issue for you and tweet, where's the letter, Miguel Cardona? People want to know it. But the great news this week about student loan debt forgiveness came from a new survey. Of 500 congressional leaders surveyed, 60 plus replied, and of them, nearly 50% of them said that they would do the $50,000 student loan debt forgiveness. The ones that said no said they would do another amount. So overall, great news across the board. Meantime, what's happening with the other items that were supposed to happen today? Well, that business grant that was supposed to go live today is not. The shuttered venue grant at SBA.gov got an announcement late yesterday. It was going live today with a date and time. And then a few hours later came another email that says, no, we're taking it offline. It's not ready. I've never in the history of SBA seen them announce a grant to go live with a date and time. Ultimately, this is going to cause massive stimulus stampede that will crash their computers. Imagine the computers are having problems before they go live. I think they're going to go crashing when they do go live. Remember, the grant is not just for venues. Go to sba.gov to learn more about it now. And then there is the business grants for existing businesses. The EIDL grant from 2020, they're paying the remainder of the grant. The PPP grant, go get that. That is now extended by executive order. There is no grant to start a new business, but the EIDL loan is still live as well at sba.gov. More about that big exciting news coming up in a second. But let me turn to the other big exciting news this coming week, which is the other corporate earnings that could signal whether this economy is rebounding faster or slower or at the same rate. On Wednesday, corporate earnings come in from Boeing, Apple, Ford, and Facebook. Apologies for that typo on the screen there for Facebook. Boeing will report corporate earnings on Wednesday, and Jim Cramer says, if you're like me, you could be heading to an unprecedented economic boom, the biggest travel onslaught in the history of the nation. So you want to own the company that's most leveraged to it, and that's Boeing. He says basically it's a reopening play, and you want to own Boeing. Apple. He says Apple stock has been laggard recently. It caught fire, but we've heard about better cell phones, so it's a potential inroad. He's not particularly bullish on it. Ford, we anticipate excellent numbers despite the chip shortages. And then Facebook. He says, judging from what we heard from Snap last night, if you like to believe that Facebook is not going to knock it out of the park, it's not too late to be a buyer of Facebook, and I think it's going to go to all new highs. Wow, that is very strong. And then Thursday, Amazon. He said that stock has been treading water for months because people are worried about the year-to-year comparisons. But I think the stock still works, says Kramer. And then on Friday is ExxonMobil and Chevron and Clorox. He says of Chevron, he says, when I listen to people with oil, they get kind of positive. I think these companies could surprise. Clorox, he says, it's a battlefield. And there's no reason to go near a battlefield, not in this market. Okay. So that sort of makes clear where you may want to be and where you may not want to be. Now, what happened on Thursday, what happened on Friday, and what's happening today that could signal big surprises for this presidency going forward for fourth stimulus, for fifth stimulus, and also for next year? It was what happened on Thursday. On Thursday, a report came out from Bloomberg News that said the President of the United States was considering taking your capital gains tax and raising it through the roof and doing it next year. Now, what is capital gains tax, and what did the report say? Capital gains tax refers to a tax you have to pay on anything you profit on from buying and selling. So a grandma who goes to a swap meet and buys a chair and sells it on eBay for a $200 profit, she gets taxed at a capital gains tax. You buy a car and you resell it, capital gains tax. You get a house and you resell it, capital gains tax. Anything you buy and you resell, a Tesla share, capital gains tax. Or a share of Bitcoin, capital gains tax. So what did he propose? Well, the interesting part of the story from Bloomberg was not so much that he was seeking to raise the capital gains tax, but was the magnitude at which he sought to do it. The report said the president was seeking to take your capital gains from 20% and to move it close to 50%, which is third world country numbers. The mere notion of even considering that number caused Wall Street to crash on Thursday, caused cryptocurrency to crash, and is still crashing today. It was not so much that the event may occur, but that anyone would ever anticipate or ever consider such a crazy number. And Wall Street is not happy with that. With that, on Friday came a report from Goldman Sachs, which said the president's never going to be able to get this done. But people didn't see the Goldman Sachs report. Rather, they heard that a president would even consider taking capital gains taxes, which impacts everyone from the middle class to working Americans to you and me, and tax it through the roof, and even do that at a time in which people are trying to get their feet on the ground. It did not bode well. And why does this not bode well? It did not bode well because for purposes of forced stimulus, the president has not come out and said which taxes he's going to touch. He's mentioned the corporate tax rate, and no one has a problem with that because he wants to take it from 20% to 22% or 23%. It's a nominal move. But there's been talk about changing the inheritance tax, changing other taxes, which are not just the billionaire or trillionaire taxes. It's when a grandma dies and leaves you a car, or your aunt dies and leaves you a pearl necklace. He wants to tax that inheritance tax. It impacts a lot of people. And with lack of clarity of that, it could signal a worry that there could be a mindset to tax in a way we really didn't see before. Taxing just for corporate tax is one thing, but taxing for big items across the board of magnitudes of 50% is something that no one anticipated happening. What you need to know is that this is the horizon between now and September. The president seeks to spend $6 trillion between January and September. He already has spent $2 trillion. Under forced stimulus, those monthly stimulus checks, he seeks to spend $3 trillion more. And then he seeks to spend $1 trillion in the fall. This means that no Republican is ever going to support raising monstrous taxes of 20 or 30% or spending $6 trillion. It means we're going to be doing recons for a while. It means as a viewer of this channel, you need to be focused and be economically prepared to understand that every stimulus package will take at least a 2-month process. We're starting for stimulus right now. It's going to be 2 months. In September, when we do that SSI reform, it's going to be 2 months. Everything will always take 2 months because none of this is ever going to pass with bipartisan support. And now people are a little bit skittish. Let me explain why people are skittish. If you fear that the capital gains tax is going to go through the roof next year, when next year's tax season starts, then you're selling now. And that's why Bitcoin and stocks took a very big tumble this week. And that tumble could continue next week because people are worried that whatever money they made buying that share and selling it on eBay, or getting that car and reselling it, or buying that antique comic book and selling it on Amazon, that the government want to take 50% of that profit. They're selling their items now in fear that that event may occur next year. Fear selling is not something good in an economy where they're trying to rebound. And with that, there's a lot of things happening still across the board. Next week is going to be a big week. We're going to see whether the corporate earnings are going to come in where we anticipate, whether it's Tesla, Apple, Microsoft, or Boeing. We're going to see whether the president is going to really explain which taxes he wants to touch and which one he doesn't. We're going to see whether the SSI and SSDI reform will get another push. That push this week was not a push. It was a big move. And finally, we're going to see when and where the talk of bipartisan support is going to stop, and we're going to start the reconciliation process. The reconciliation process is a 2-month process. We need the vote by July, and away we go. With that, I hope this recording has been informative. Let me recap. 4 stimulus checks will start in the month of July and pay through at least December under the 4 stimulus package. This is if you're on SSI or SSDI, Social Security and Rural Benefits. It's the single biggest payout you've seen on this channel. It's upward of $8,000 to $12,000. It's going to happen because in the fall, the president on the 5th stimulus is looking to pay 17 to newborns $24,000 over 6 years. He's not having a problem paying you $8,000 when he's paying children $24,000. In the fall, you're going to see SSI reform that will raise your benefits and put you at a new number going forward. Also in the fall, you're going to see big changes for other items across the board. But when we get to 4 stimulus to the finish line, could other things slide in there? Like the wealth tax, like the $6,000 of PUA, we'll see that as well. Thank you for joining me on a Big Mornings broadcast. Coming up later today, the excitement continues. I look forward to seeing you. Our schedule continues in about 2 hours from now with noon LA. And then it goes into afternoons LA. followed by another afternoon's LA broadcast and then LA Late Night. I hope you stay informed, stay focused, and stay smiling. I thank you for joining me on this morning's broadcast, and I'll see you in just a little bit. Make sure you subscribe, like this video, and consider becoming a member. Purple Hawk, Purple Power, or Calcino VIP. Stay informed and focused, and stay with LA.